Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Noel Sayer. I'm the Planet Australia Concierge and your host for the webinar today. Before we get started, I'd just like to let you know that we are recording the webinar and they will be provided online shortly after today's session. The format of our webinar today is essentially an introduction to the 2D CAD multiplier. We do have a large group today, which we're so very pleased to have everybody here with us. Thank you. We will try to get to any questions that may arise as we go along. Some of the material may be familiar to some people. However, if any questions do arise, I would ask if you could please type them into the Q&A section of the chat, which I'll be opening shortly. If we're not able to get to every question, we will be sure to follow up with each and every one of the webinar. And I am very pleased to be able to introduce a few of my colleagues from Planet Australia today, starting with our key presenter, Damien Sentong. Thank you, Damien, for joining us, who will be taking us through 2D CAD multiplier today. Welcome also to some members from our sales team. We have Rebecca Suda, Daniel O'Connell, and Chris Tang. And now I will hand over to Damien, who will take us through today's subject, 2D CAD. Over to you, Damien.
Thanks, Noel. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar. As Noel said, my name is Damien. I am a member of the services team here at Planet Australia. I may or may not have spoken to you or seen you guys in person before, but it's nice to put, I guess, a face to the name. So today I will be explaining the 2D CAD multiplier. So what is 2D CAD? So 2D CAD is probably one of the most commonly used multipliers to apply to your cabinet vision configuration. It allows you to apply various notes, manual dimensions, annotations, arrow points that are effective in communication to anyone that you're presenting your drawings to. So here I will be demonstrating the key areas of the 2D CAD multiplier, starting with modify. Now I will be switching the screen over to cabinet vision here. As you can see, I will be using a room that I have already set up as an example. Okay, so 2D CAD, we'll start by actually showing where the 2D CAD function is. So if you can follow my mouse here, I'm moving toward the left-hand side of the screen, and you can see the CAD functionality on the bottom. You can select it by either clicking on the option or just using the F7 key on your keyboard. So as I move into the CAD function here, you can see at the top of my toolbar here, you have various options that you can utilize. So like I said, I'll be starting with modify. So with modify, there are 7 functions that you can choose from. First one being delete. So delete only works when you do have CAD applied to the page. So I'll just use an example by dropping some lines in, like so. Now either by left clicking onto the line or holding the left click and highlighting the whole group, you'll see that the delete option becomes available to you to use. You can either select the delete function here from the toolbar, or you can just hit delete onto your keyboard. So for demonstration purposes, I will be selecting it through here, and you can see that the CAD is now removed. You can undo anything that you think may have been a mistake by selecting the undo arrow up here, or using the keyboard shortcut Control-Z. So that will return it to the way it was before. The next option down the bottom is transform. Now transform gives you 3 other options once you have CAD selected. So once I'll do is I'll move my mouse down here, highlight the CAD again, go back up to my toolbar, select the drop down, and you can see now my 3 options are available to use. So the first one being flip, which will literally flip it in almost like a 360 degree. And then you have mirror. So mirror will rotate it either in a horizontal or vertical, depending on the placement of your CAD. and then you have rotate. So rotate gives you 4 options to select from in terms of the direction of left and right. You can select at a 90, 180, 270, or a free application in degrees. So if you wanted to rotate, say, the highlighted CAD in a right direction at 90 degrees, you would just select right. Then you would select your 90-degree option here and click OK. So that's all the functionality within the transform dropdown. Moving on, we do have trim. Now, trim is very useful when you're trying to tidy up a drawing or if you have excessive CAD on the page that you no longer require. So what I'll do is I will select another line and I will draw it intersecting through the current CAD I already have. Now, by selecting trim and selecting the dropdown, I'm going to first demonstrate trim delete. Now, trim delete will remove the excessive or the intersecting CAD line that you select. So if I left click on this intersecting line here, you can see that it disappears. So I'll undo that and demonstrate the next function, which is trim keep. Now, trim keep won't actually delete the line that you select, but will retain the line that you select or any other CAD in that fashion. So if I select trim keep, say I want to keep this line, and then it will remove the excess above. And the last option is trim break. So trim break won't actually delete anything at all. It will just separate all the lines into individual components. So again, by selecting trim on the toolbar, then trim break, then I can select any line within this configuration of CAD. And you can see now these 2 lines are independent to each other. So you can basically move them wherever you need to. I will be removing this example of CAD to demonstrate the next options, which is under the join functionality here. So what I'll do is I'll just place in 2 lines again as an L shape, as this will be the most relevant way to demonstrate these functions. So with join, you have 4 other options here. The first one being consolidate. Now, consolidate will allow you to select 2 lines and then form them to create a singular polyline. So if I select consolidate here and I select my 2 lines, I will select return. Now, once I select those lines again, you can see that they are connected and have formed a polyline. So essentially, you can just pick any point, move them to where you need to be, though they will still remain connected, and you have various points to select from. So I will now return these back to individual lines again. And I will next demonstrate the connect function. Now, connect will actually join 2 lines together when they aren't actually connected like so. So what I will do is I will move this line over a little bit to create a distance between the 2. I'll go back up to the toolbar under join, then connect. Then I will select my 2 lines again. And then you can see they form them like that. So you'll connect the 2 lines together. The next option is fillet. So fillet will actually allow you to apply a radius curve of your desire. So if I select join fillet, and you can see on the left, it gives you the option to apply the value of the radius that you want to put on the lines. Keep in mind that the value of the radius also needs to be relevant to the size of the line that you've drawn. So if your radius is going to be 100 mil, then you need to ensure that the line is long enough to apply that. So seeing that these 2 are long enough, I will just select the 2 lines. And then you can see there it applies a radius curve of 100 mil. You can change it after the fact, though you will need to modify your CAD furthermore. The last option under join is chamfer. So chamfer will create a 45-degree line by selecting the 2, and it will also give you the ability to select the length of that line. So on the left-hand side here, you have your chamfer length. So I will just leave it at the 200 the way it is at the moment, and then I'll go ahead and select the 2 lines here. So as you can see, it has created a line at 45 degrees with a length of 200. So I will just remove these CAD lines now and recenter my page to demonstrate the next function, which is offset. Now, offset's very useful if you already have CAD drawn out, but you wish to copy that line and move it in either a horizontal or vertical direction of your distance. So this is where I'll be utilizing my sample room here. So the way I've configured this room is that I have a bench depth of 600 mil, and I will be using the offset function to actually to locate where I wish to put my island area. So I'll go back into CAD. I will select a line. I can start at the back point here, draw a line up to the front of my bench, which is 600. Then I will draw a line across, like so. So now I have my starting line, and then now I will use the offset function up here, back on the tools. Select the line, and this is where you are able to input your own value. So we're going to set a distance between the lengths of the bench tops. So I will just place in the value of, say, 1200. So this will be to the start point or to the front of the bench top, so the distance between. And I will offset it again to create my overall depth of my bench. So I will just place in, say, 900 here. So we essentially have our placement of our overall bench depth. Now we can complete this by utilizing various other tools like line to create the overall shape. Now, obviously with most island benches, you would have a overhang. So again, you can use the offset function, select the back line and offset it back into wherever you need it to be. So I'm going to use a value of 300. Return. So from here, this is how our placement of the island is going to be. So now I can easily select the wall, change this to a peninsula, drop my wall in like so. And now I have my wall ready to place cabinets. After offset, we have crop. So crop will actually allow you to maintain any CAD that you apply in the highlighted area. So I will select the crop function here. And by holding the left click, I will drag the box across to the area I wish to retain. I will let go, select again, and as you can see, it deletes everything else that wasn't highlighted within that area. So crop can be very useful if you're trying to remove or actually maintain any specific CAD on your page there. The last option or last tool in modify is bend. So bend essentially will just allow you to transform any straight line into a curve. Now you can change the radius after the fact as well. So there are all your options under modify. We'll next be looking at the drawing category. So much like I've demonstrated already, under drawing, we have lines. So lines will be probably the most common tool used out of the 2D CAD function. So obviously within lines, you do have 3 other options here. So the first one I'll demonstrate is line. So this would just place a single line. So you would start by left clicking on your screen, dragging it to your end destination or end point, left clicking, and it will just place a singular line there. The other option would be chain line. So a chain line is just continuous. So again, you would start by selecting your first point, selecting the next point, and selecting the next point. The chain line will continuously happen until you cancel the functionality by right-clicking your mouse. The last option there is line box. Line box will essentially drop a box with 4 lines. So these are all individual lines. None of these are actually connected, which brings me on to rectangle. So rectangle, much like line box, will drop in a rectangle at any width and length or width and height of your choosing. But as you can see, it's a full connected CAD here. So there's no individuality in terms of like moving the lines on their own, like I can do here with a line box. After a rectangle, we have a circle. So you can place a circle, and by hitting the tab key on your keyboard, you can predetermine the radius of the circle that you want to draw in. So after circle, we have arcs. So with arcs, you have 3 other options here. So you have normal, like your first arc option. So you start by selecting 1 point, dragging it to the next, then you'll have an arc here. The next option is arc by radius. So again, you would just select a start point, and then you can drag it anywhere on the page or predetermine the radius here. So again, I'll just use 300. And then by doing so, you can actually move your mouse around either in a clockwise or anti-clockwise rotation and create your curve here, like so. And lastly would be 3 points arc, which I believe is probably the most commonly used tool out of the 3. So the 3 points arc will allow you to just draw an arc, you selecting 3 points on your screen. So you can utilize the grid if you wish. As you can see, it's snapping to each point of the grid. Or if you already have a predetermined curve or predetermined points, you can just select it like so. So that's 1 point here, 2nd point, and then your curve there with the last point. After arcs, we have hatch. Now, hatch is a great tool to highlight anything, or you may want to apply a specific pattern to an area of your choosing. So what I'll do is I will go to the elevation of the room I've drawn here. Cannot seem to find the room. Ah, there it is. So what I'm going to demonstrate here is how I would apply a hatch to, say, the splash area of this kitchen. So I'll go back to the CAD. I will select my hatch option here. Now on the left, you do have options for your different patterns under the hatch category here. So I'll select the 3 dots. And then here are various choosing that you can apply to the hatch. So what I'll do is I'll just select this honeycomb pattern here. And then by applying a hatch, I'll select my 4 points. And as you can see, it's applied the pattern across the areas that we've selected. So it's a great way to really demonstrate something that may have a particular pattern. So after hatch, we do have polyline. So polyline, much like a chain line, is just a continual series of lines. So the difference being that with a polyline, it creates multiple points across everything that you have drawn. So you can select at various different intersections here. So that's 1 point, your 2nd point, 3rd point, and last point in this example. So it's a great way if you've got specific points that you need to select onto your project. So there are all the functions from the drawing category. Next, we'll be moving on to annotate. So everyone was probably familiar with the annotate. This may be probably the most utilized category out of the 2D CAD, especially with the dimensions function here. So dimensions will allow you to place manually selected dimensions of your choosing that isn't or already hasn't been generated from the system, as we can see on the elevation. So looking at this, and I will use the height of the fridge space, for example, there is nothing that is generated via the system dimensions to display this opening. So what I'll do is I will move up to the Annotate category and select Dimensions. So my current settings are a linear dimension. So linear means that it will only move in a 90-degree rotation. So in the way this operates is I select one point, and I'll move up to select my next point, and I will drag it out like so. And as you can see, it's giving me my fridge opening dimension of 1850. So you can use this across any form or any dimension that you're trying to display on your drawing. So like I said, the system won't always give you the dimension that you need. So using this is a great way to show that. Along with dimensions, you do have your other various types here. So as I already explained with linear, then you also have aligned. So aligned is more of a free-flowing movement. It allows you to select any point at any given time. So you can start by one, move it in any direction, select it, and then you can drop your dimension like so. So after that, we'll have radius. So these are the most commonly used dimensions you may utilize on your drawing, being aligned, linear, radius, diameter, and angular. So with radius, it is best used if you have a curve or a circle drawn anywhere. So what I'll do is I'll just place a circle here, go back to my dimensions, select my dimension, and select a radius. Now, this will only work with anything that may have a curve or a radius edge. So what I'll do is select the circle here, and it will start to populate a trailing line. Once you left click again, it will populate your radius value for you. It is the same functionality if you were to apply it with a diameter. So it's just the diameter value of what you've drawn already. The next one I'll demonstrate is angular. So I will do that by just drawing two lines at an angle like so. So I have my CAD angle like this. So I'll select dimensions again. Select my angular. So with angular, you would select the 3 points of your angle, which will give you the correct dimension. So I'll start with this point here, down to my second point being the tip of the angle, and my last point here. As you can see, this is how you want to see the angular dimension function, by dragging it out like so, and it will give you the correct angle like this. Moving on to leaders. Now leaders, the best way I could explain it is basically just like an arrowhead, allowing you to highlight any particular aspect of your drawing. So utilizing the first leader here, if I select anywhere on the drawing and right clicking to cancel the function, we'll just place a leader like this. So there's no actual text. You can apply text after the fact by doing like this. So you can say tiles, or you may use the next function here, which is text leader. So text leader will do the same option or the same function here by selecting your start point, then your end point. Then once you right click on your mouse, will populate the text box. And then from here, you can actually type in what you wish to display. You can modify the text after the fact as well. So along with the alignments, the vertical alignment of how you wish to place the text. So at the moment it's at the base. You can move it to be at the top. Change the height if you need to as well. And you do have the function to change the text after the fact. The next one is the assembly leader. Now, assembly leader only works if you are selecting an object on your drawing. So if you're trying to click anywhere off an object, it will not work at all. As you can see, I'm actually left clicking, nothing is happening. If I were to move my mouse over to this overhead cabinet and I left click, you see the leader actually activates. So I can drag it out, left click again to select my endpoint. And once I right click, we will populate the name of that assembly. It not only just works for cabinets, you can use it on walls as well. You got wall 2 and any appliance that you may have on your drawing. Now it will follow the name of the assembly, as you can see here. So if you do have specific naming conventions, it will display that on the text. Which moves on to text. Now text is, again, a very commonly used tool within the annotate section. So text allows you to select anywhere or any point onto your drawing. I will use, again, the overhead cabinet as an example. So if I wish to annotate that there are adjustable shelves within this cabinet, I will just select any point, I guess, close to the shelf. And you do have the ability to type in the full word if you wish. Or if you already know it, you can just put in an abbreviation like ADJ, for example, for adjustable shelf. You can predetermine how your text is going to display before you actually place it onto the drawing. So if you select text, you can predetermine all your settings here. So the color of your text, so you can actually select it here. And again, as well as like the vertical placement, the type of font that you wish to display. Also, if you want it to be bold or not. The next option here is text box. Now, text box is very useful if you have a higher quantity of information. So rather than just having a single sentence or a word or two, a text box will actually allow you to place or continuously type within the area governed here. You can change the dimensions of the box if you wish as well. And as well as that, you do have a few options for the box itself. So by default, it's applying a frame around the text. On the left-hand side here with all your options, you can turn the frame off, like so. And as well as the horizontal alignment. So if you don't want it to be situated on the left, you can just change it to the center. And as you're typing, everything will work off the center point of the text box. Much like the other text function, you can change the color of it. Bear in mind that if you do need a specific line of text within the box to be a different color, you do not have the ability to apply that. So you would have to type that out as a singular line and change the color. After text box, you have spelling. Now, spelling will actually allow you to correct anything that you may have spelled incorrectly. So I'll do that by typing in something that isn't correct. So I'll say THS. So if we zoom in there, so the intention was to spell that this is not correct. So if I go back up to my toolbar and select the spelling option here, as you can see, it's already populated suggestions for you to select. So we want to change THS to this. So we'll select our suggestion and then select change. As you can see that it has changed in the line here. And the next one that is discovered is NT. So again, it'll give you a list of suggestions for you to select from. So I want to select not, I'll go change. And then lastly is correct. So as you can see, the correct spelling is in the list here and it has corrected itself. So it's a great function if you think you may have misspelled something or you just want to prove that you have everything spelled correctly. The last option is cloud. So cloud will just, by selecting multiple points like this, will just populate a cloud like so. And it doesn't look that good. So with cloud, you do have two options. So you can use it by selecting the various points like I did there, or when you select cloud again under annotate, there is an option on the left for freehand. So you do not need to actually select the points. It'll just follow the shape of your mouse, or the movement of your mouse, I should say. So you begin by left clicking, and then it'll follow the movement of the mouse. So I am not actually left clicking there. So that covers everything under annotate. We'll then be moving on to insert. So under the insert option here on the toolbar, with the drop down, you do have 5 other options that you can select from. The most commonly used out of this list would be symbol. Now, symbol allows you to place different indicators or even text abbreviations, as you can see on the left here, and apply it to the drawing. You can also create your own symbols. So by applying various different types of CAD, or if you have particular details that you already drawn, you can save that for later use. It just increases your drawing efficiency and time, just saving you from having to do it over and over again. So for example, I've already created one here. It's just a series of rectangles, like so. So to drag a symbol out, you would just select one. I'm going to select my new symbol, drag it out, and apply it to the page. So these are just some dimension guides that I've created. If you want to save it back to the catalog, you can draw in any CAD that you already have prepared. So I'll just use these 2 lines as an example. I will highlight them both. Now, if it's a series of just singular lines or anything like that, you can group them together to create one whole CAD. So as I've already highlighted, I can right click anywhere and then I can group them. This essentially will create one CAD object. Now, if I want to save this back to the symbols library, I will just select it, right click, and then you have the option up the top for save symbol. Here you have the ability to choose which folder you want them to go into. You can create your own category again if you'd like, or just place it within one of these. So I'm just going to select arrows and markers, and you can give it a name as well. So I'm just going to call it lines. Click OK. So the next time we go back to insert, then symbol, it should populate on the bottom of the list there. So after symbol, we have table. Now, table is a great option if you wish to auto-populate information for the job. Now, table will give you various options depending on the level of room that you're in. So currently, we're at the room level with our kitchen drawn. So I'm going to select CAD, insert, then table. Now, much like the text box, you select your starting point, drag out to however you want your table to be or how big you want it to be, and select your last point. Once you do that, it populates a new window. So here we have our table window. We have 2 options here. So you've got groups and columns. So what we want to do is actually create a group. So under here, we have the addition symbol here. So we'll select that. And then you can see it populates a new group window. So we have a filter option, and the first one that displays is accessories. Now, upon that drop down, these are the different bits of information that you can populate based on the room level. So what I want to do is populate a table for all assemblies. You can change the name of the header if you wish, or just retain the default one based on the name of the filter. So I'm going to retain this and select OK. Once you apply a group, you then have different options to apply for your columns. So the first one being no or number, and as well as like the name, description, and comment. Okay, and then you can select the width, height, and depth as well. You can choose multiples at once by holding the control key. So I'm going to select the number, the name, the width, height, and depth, and apply that to the visible column by selecting the right arrow. Once you hit OK, you can see there it's populated a table of all the assemblies here. So you have the number, the name, as well as the sizing. You can create your own table as well. You don't necessarily need to populate the options given to you. So by dropping a table again, hitting the plus symbol, you would select the user option here, and then you can just give it a different name. And then upon this, you would actually type in the name of your own columns. I'll just use the word test again, as well as selecting how many rows you want to populate. After that, you can fill in each cell individually by selecting it. Then you have the data that you can apply there. After insert, we have DXF. Now, this is a very commonly asked question. Can we import DXFs into Cabinet Vision? We can, but DXF import is predominantly used if it's a 2D layout, so not a 3D. So if you have a DXF file that is like a 2D layout, like with some CAD lines, you can import the file through here. After DXF, we have image. As the name suggests, you can import an image onto the drawing, which may be visual reference for something that you may not want to draw. It's just something completely not relevant to the project. After image, you have media. So media, you can import actual videos onto the drawing as well if you wish to show a short clip or anything like that. So that's everything under insert. Now, with all these options applied through 2D CAD, you can ultimately have a result of something like this. So this is a room I've prepared earlier. So with that same layout, I have my island bench drawn, as well as a few annotations and notes across the page. So as you can see, I have a text box here with a leader and just a few various text notes here as well. I have some manually added dimensions. And if I look at the elevation, so I've added more notes for myself. So the annotating of the adjustable shelves, the canopy range for the oven, the fridge opening, and I've made use of the dimension guide symbol that I had created earlier. Upon all of this, it is highly beneficial to apply all your 2D CAD to your elevations. So when you do send them to the drawings tab here, so I'll select that. It does make it a lot easier to organize and sort out. So this is just an example that I put together. So I have a 3D here, a plan view, my elevation, the elevations of the island, and you can go as far as applying a cross section. So to apply a cross section, we go back to our elevation and we can select cross section here. So by right clicking, you can just send it to the drawing scene. And then I've just inserted a table with all the assemblies that are on that drawing that I've created. So that's everything I have demonstrated for 2D CAD. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and I will pass it back to Noel. Thank you, Noel.
Great, thank you, Damien. That was fantastic. I'm sure everybody would agree. It was a great walkthrough there, and hopefully, even if you know the multiplier, that you may have learned something as well. So we did open up the webinar to questions there. We don't have anything as yet in the Q&A area, but just to ask if anybody does have anything, we'll take a few moments just to allow some opportunity there to ask any questions you may have, any thoughts you might have arisen while we've been going through that there with Damien. There is an opportunity, I'll just mention, to raise your hand in the system. There's a raise button on your screen. Should also be able to enter into the Q&A conversation that I've started up at the beginning of the session